My beloved child, there is a moment approaching in this story that you may never forget, because what your soulmate heard in that final hour was not something ordinary, not something that could simply be dismissed as the fading words of an elderly woman. It was a message that seemed to reach beyond the room, beyond the years, and somehow beyond the distance between two hearts that have not yet fully understood what they mean to each other. Before you decide this is just another story, listen carefully, because something huge is waiting for you. Don't skip this moment. Stay till the end, because the deeper you go, the more you will understand why your soulmate was there, why that woman chose those particular words, and why your name, your presence, or something connected to you became the center of a conversation that was never supposed to happen. Imagine a quiet room near the end of someone's life. The lights are low. The world outside continues as if nothing unusual is happening, yet inside that room, time seems to slow down. Your soulmate is sitting beside a woman whose strength is almost gone, listening to every breath, every pause, every fragile word. She has very little time left, and she knows it. Then suddenly, she looks directly into your soulmate's eyes with an expression that changes everything. It is not fear in her face. It is recognition. It is almost as if she has been waiting for this exact person to sit beside her. Your soulmate leans closer because her voice has become almost impossible to hear. She whispers something that makes your soulmate completely still. At first, there is confusion. Then disbelief. Then an emotion that cannot easily be explained. The woman says that there is someone your soulmate has not fully understood yet, someone whose importance will become impossible to ignore. She says that some connections do not arrive loudly. They begin quietly, through a feeling, a strange coincidence, an unexpected meeting, or a person who somehow feels familiar before there is any logical reason for it. Your soulmate immediately thinks of you. That is where this story begins. And if you have ever wondered why certain people enter your life at the exact moment you need them, don't skip, because the next revelation changes the meaning of everything that happened before. There was something unusual about the woman's certainty. She did not speak like someone making a guess. She spoke as though she had carried a secret for years and had finally found the right person to receive it. Your soulmate asked her what she meant, but the woman did not answer immediately. She closed her eyes for a few seconds, gathered what little strength remained, and then whispered that love is sometimes recognized long before it is accepted. She said there are people who cross paths and feel nothing, people who meet and become friends, people who meet and immediately feel an unexplained pull. And then there are rare connections that seem to awaken something buried deep inside. Your soulmate remembered moments with you that had once seemed insignificant. A glance that lasted longer than expected. A conversation that stayed in the mind long after it ended. A sudden feeling of peace around you. The strange sense that your presence carried a meaning that could not be explained. The woman noticed the change in your soulmate's expression and quietly said, "You already know who I am talking about." Your soulmate did not respond. There was no need. The silence answered for them. Then came the part that caused the deepest shock. The woman revealed that she had once experienced a connection similar to this. And she had spent years watching people misunderstand what real emotional recognition feels like. She said that people often run from what they cannot explain, especially when the connection becomes too powerful for their plans, expectations, or fears. She warned your soulmate not to make the same mistake. "Do not confuse delay with denial," she whispered. "Some things take time because hearts need time to become ready." Your soulmate sat there, absorbing every word, while the room seemed to become even quieter. Don't skip this part, because the message was not simply about love. It was about timing. It was about the possibility that the person your soulmate had been trying to understand was never meant to be judged by a single moment. And somehow, every word kept leading back to you. Then the woman said something that made your soulmate's heart race. She asked whether there had been a person recently who had appeared unexpectedly and changed the way your soulmate looked at the future. Your soulmate immediately thought of you. The woman smiled faintly, as if that answer had already been written somewhere long before the conversation began. She explained that some people arrive when we are still carrying old disappointments, old fears, and old assumptions about what love is supposed to look like. Because of that, we may fail to recognize the person standing directly in front of us. We may question their intentions. We may create distance. We may convince ourselves that the timing is wrong. But sometimes the timing is not wrong. Sometimes the heart is simply catching up with what the soul already recognizes. Your soulmate asked why she was telling them all this now. The woman's eyes became serious. She said, "Because you are running out of time to keep pretending you do not feel what you feel." Those words landed heavily. Your soulmate looked down, remembering every time they had held something back, every moment they had wanted to speak but remained silent, every opportunity they had almost taken and then abandoned because uncertainty became louder than courage. The woman continued, saying that the greatest regrets in life are not always the things we did. Sometimes they are the words we were too afraid to say when we still had the chance. Stay till the end, because this is where the story becomes deeply personal. She told your soulmate that if someone keeps returning to their thoughts without being invited, if someone's presence changes their emotional state, if they feel unusually protective of that person, if they find themselves imagining conversations that never happened, then perhaps the connection deserves to be understood instead of dismissed. And your soulmate knew exactly who she meant. A few minutes passed before the woman revealed another detail. She said she had seen a similar pattern in her own life many years earlier. When someone entered her world at a time when she was least prepared to receive them. She had been afraid, she had hesitated, and eventually circumstances separated them. For years she believed she had moved on. But near the end of her life, she realized something painful. Moving forward is not always the same as letting go. Sometimes the heart carries a truth quietly, even while the mind builds an entirely different life around it. She looked at your soulmate and said that she did not want them to spend years wondering what might have happened if they had been brave enough to listen. Then she whispered that the person they were thinking about had a role in their future that they had not yet understood. She did not describe the future in simple terms. She spoke about growth, healing, trust, and a bond that could become stronger only if both people stopped allowing fear to make every decision. Your soulmate asked whether she truly believed this person was important. The woman answered without hesitation. More important than you realize. Your soulmate's eyes filled with emotion, because suddenly every unanswered question seemed connected to one central possibility. What if you were not a passing chapter? What if the strange familiarity, the unexpected timing, and the emotional pull were pieces of a much larger story? Don't skip now. Something huge is waiting for you in the next moment. Because the woman had not yet revealed the one thing she had been saving for last, her breathing became quieter. Your soulmate moved closer, afraid that the message might disappear before it was fully spoken. The woman reached toward your soulmate's hand and held it gently. Then she said that there was one particular quality about you that your soulmate needed to understand. She said you were not meant to be treated as an option, a temporary comfort, or someone who could simply be kept waiting forever. She said that your heart had already survived moments your soulmate knew nothing about. There were battles you had fought silently. There were nights when you questioned your own worth. There were moments when you almost gave up on the idea that someone could genuinely understand you. Yet you continued moving forward. The woman said that this resilience was one of the reasons the connection mattered. She told your soulmate that genuine love is not simply about finding someone attractive, exciting, or emotionally comforting. It is about recognizing someone's value when the excitement becomes quiet. It is about choosing understanding when assumptions would be easier. It is about seeing the person beneath their defenses. Your soulmate listened without interrupting. Then the woman whispered, "When you finally understand why this person entered your life, you will realize that the waiting was not empty." Those words struck deeply. Your soulmate began remembering the moments when you had appeared strong even when you were carrying something heavy. Perhaps you smiled when you were hurting. Perhaps you encouraged others while secretly needing encouragement yourself. Perhaps you gave people chances even after being disappointed. The woman seemed to know exactly what she was saying. She told your soulmate that the person they were thinking about had a heart that needed reassurance, not confusion. And that message changed something inside them. Feel something inside them soften when they heard your name? These questions were not accusations. They were invitations to honesty. Your soulmate could no longer hide behind uncertainty. Then the woman whispered that there was one final thing your soulmate must never forget. If someone makes you feel seen in a world where you have spent years feeling misunderstood, do not treat that as ordinary. Your soulmate closed their eyes. Your face appeared in their mind. Not an imagined version of you, but the real you, the person with imperfections, fears, hopes, and a heart that had continued to believe despite disappointment. And in that instant, your soulmate understood that perhaps the woman had not been predicting the future at all. Perhaps she had simply been reminding them to recognize what was already standing in front of them. The room became still once again, and your soulmate realized that the woman had almost finished speaking. Yet her expression carried a strange peace. She looked at your soulmate and said that the greatest turning points in life sometimes arrive disguised as ordinary conversations. A simple meeting can become a memory. A stranger can become a trusted person. A single sentence can change a decision that affects years to come. She said that this was one of those moments. Your soulmate asked her whether she believed two people could find their way back to each other after confusion, distance, and fear. The woman answered softly, if both are willing to stop running from what they know is true. Your soulmate felt those words settle somewhere deep inside. They thought of every misunderstanding between you, every moment when pride or uncertainty had created distance, every time one of you waited for the other to make the first move. Suddenly, those moments looked different. Not meaningless, but unfinished. The woman reminded your soulmate that unfinished does not mean hopeless. Sometimes it simply means the story has not reached the moment when both people are ready to understand it. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because there was still one final message she had not yet delivered. And it was the reason she had insisted that your soulmate stay beside her until the very end. Her voice became barely more than a whisper. Your soulmate leaned close enough to hear every word. She said, when you see them again, do not look at them through the eyes of your fear. Look at them through the eyes of everything you have learned. Then she paused. And if they seem distant, remember that distance does not always mean a lack of feeling. Sometimes it means someone is protecting a heart they have spent years rebuilding. Your soulmate became emotional because those words explained something they had never been able to understand about you. Perhaps your silence had been misunderstood. Perhaps your strength had been mistaken for indifference. Perhaps your independence had hidden how deeply you cared. The woman continued, saying that the person your soulmate loved might not need grand promises. They might simply need consistency. They might need to know that someone will not disappear the moment things become complicated. They might need proof that this connection is not another temporary chapter. Your soulmate listened, and for the first time, they understood that love was not about chasing a perfect fantasy. It was about showing up with honesty when reality became difficult. Then the woman smiled and whispered one final sentence about you. one sentence your soulmate would remember for the rest of their life. She said that you had a kind of heart that could change someone without even realizing it. And suddenly your soulmate knew that their life had already been changed. The woman's eyes slowly closed, but before the room fell completely silent, your soulmate heard the words they had been waiting for. Do not let fear make the decision for you. That was it. No dramatic prediction. No impossible promise. Just a truth powerful enough to rearrange everything. Your soulmate sat there in silence, holding the woman's hand, realizing that the message had never been about controlling the future. It had been about recognizing the present. You were real. The feelings were real. The questions were real. And whatever happened next would depend on choices, honesty, patience, and courage. But there was something else your soulmate realized that night. They had been waiting for a sign when perhaps the real sign was the feeling they had already been trying to ignore. They remembered your voice. They remembered your smile. They remembered the moments when being around you felt strangely peaceful. They remembered the things you said that stayed in their mind long after the conversation ended. And they realized that sometimes the most powerful connections are not the loudest ones. They are the ones that quietly remain when everything else becomes silent. So don't skip the meaning of this moment. Stay till the end, because the story does not end with the woman's final breath. It begins there. The message she left behind became a turning point in your soulmate's heart, and what happened afterward would bring your story closer to a revelation neither of you could have predicted. Hours later, your soulmate left that room carrying something invisible but powerful. The world outside looked exactly the same, yet they were not the same person who had entered. Every step seemed heavier because they knew that avoiding the truth would never make the truth disappear. They understood that your connection could not be measured by a single conversation, a single delay, or a single misunderstanding. They also understood that they had a choice. They could continue allowing fear to control their actions, or they could finally become honest about what you meant to them. And somewhere in the quiet of that night, they made a decision. They would not force anything. They would not pretend to know everything about the future. But they would no longer treat you as though you were insignificant. They would stop running from the question that had followed them for so long: what if this person is more important than I ever realized? The woman's words had opened that door, but your soulmate would have to walk through it themselves. And perhaps that is the greatest revelation of all. Sometimes destiny does not arrive as a spectacular event. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet realization in the middle of an ordinary night. Sometimes the person who changes your life is already somewhere in your world, waiting for the courage to finally be recognized. Don't skip. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because the next chapter is where the meaning of that final whisper begins to reach you, and once you understand why your soulmate could never forget what that woman said, you may never look at your own connection in quite the same way again.